Welcome to Nephew and Uncle
Hey, how
Basketball
many layers,
Banter.
please?
I am joined by my uncle, as always, David Scholler. And Uncle Dave, we're going to get into Hubie Brown retiring from the NBA as an announcer. And I saw a stat the other day that was absolutely insane that he's either coached with, for, against, or broadcast 80% of the NBA that's ever played.
Yeah,
And obviously a legend leaving the game at 91. Sorely miss him in our game, that's for sure, though, right?
yeah. Well, he didn't sound the same the other day on the broadcast. His voice is a little
Yeah,
scratchy, but
right.
he basically people forget he coached in college. He was assistant with Chuck Daly on the Duke staff in the early '70s. And so that's a powerful staff right there. And then he basically was the Kentucky Colonels coach, coached at William and Mary. If you look at his records, he always has a couple of years of success, and then it starts to get away from him. With the Knicks, he had success in '83 and '84 with Bernard King. That was a great situation. Lost to the Celtics in 7 games. The Celtics team that eventually won the NBA championship. But then Bernard King got hurt the next year. They drafted Patrick Ewing, but then Patrick got hurt. So he was involved in 2 rebuilds and then got let go early in the '87 season with a very young Patrick Ewing and a beat up Bernard King. Then he went over to Memphis and turned them around for a quick 52 win season. But then again, at 71 years old, he retired from coaching. But again, he always turns everybody around where he goes. He did it with the Atlanta Hawks in the '70s as well. But then eventually he runs out of juice. Those '70s Hawks teams had great defense. They had guys like Dan Roundfield on a team. They were really good. People don't know. If you look up Dan Roundfield, he's like a 6'9" power forward who can defend and score you 13 and get you 10 every night. So he's always been a great defensive coach. Coached you hard. Those '80s Knicks teams, they're involved in some great series with the Pistons in 1984. I was a Kelly Tripucka fan, so watching Bernard King get 50 and Kelly Tripucka get 35 every night for a 5 game series in 1984 was if you go back and watch those games on YouTube, unbelievable games. That's the game 5 Isaiah Thomas scores. I think it's 16 points in 2 minutes. We only hit like one or two threes back then, and it gets kept stealing the ball, forces it to go to overtime, and then the Knicks win anyway.
Hubie Brown, he goes back to all the way Uncle Dave in 1975. He won an ABA championship,
Yeah, the
you
Kentucky
know.
Colonels.
Yeah, just incredible.
Yeah, had
And
great success with the Kentucky Colonels. He's almost like 100 games over 500.
unbelievable. And for those of you that obviously who've watched basketball, you'll know this. Hubie Brown was, if I could pick one guy, even if you weren't a knowledgeable basketball fan, he had just a very simplistic way of breaking down what was very complex types of situations. And he could just like, if you were wanting to listen to someone to learn basketball, I think I would point to him, I think, honestly, as the number one guy.
Yeah, he's in Uncle Ken's book a lot. Uncle Ken interviewed him a lot for his NBA books, and Hubie Brown in the last year and a half has suffered some real tragedy in his life, and I think that pushed him also to step away. He lost his daughter, his son, and his wife within the
Oh,
last couple of
jeez.
years.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think it's made him pause and just say to himself, let me step back. Although I have to say, I thought he would probably keep staying in that circumstance, but he's chosen to step away. And yeah, like I said, his voice sounded a little scratchy yesterday. Maybe he has a cold, or maybe he just wants to take some time. And he was a great. Like I say, his son died of a heart attack recently. His daughter died of sickness, and his wife died of dementia. So, well, not of dementia, but had dementia for 5 years and fought. So he's had a lot of personal tragedy too. But if you want to hear about a good interview, he did a good interview with Chris Russo at least recently about, just what's been going on for him the last couple of years. So losing his son at like 57, who's my age, and his daughter, it
That's
just
tough.
was a lot for him. Like I said, I'll never judge him, but I'm surprised he would step away after losing people because he always credited his wife for pushing him, and she let him do whatever he wanted to do. So I know that was a big loss for him. Some people are married, but they're not really married. This guy was married and was really married. His wife was a big reason for his success. But
Yep.
yeah, he was a basketball savant. He could always explain the game like he was talking to a 5-year-old.
Yeah, he's been an NBA coach or broadcaster since 1972. So I mean,
Yep.
he's an integral part of the game. at every
Yeah,
level. He played for Niagara from 1952 to
yep,
1955. He's obviously lived a fantastic life. So if he went
yeah,
tonight, no,
yeah,
can't feel bad about it. He's lived a great life
yeah.
this.
Go watch some of those Memphis things. He helped to rebuild that. Jerry West was involved in that and said, "Let me get someone to quick make a difference." He put Hubie in there. Hubie made a quick difference. It's yeah, he's the guy who's going to teach you their game the right way. I don't know if today's player could handle him, but yeah, like I said, he's really good with the Knicks. Go back and watch those '84 Knick teams; those are really good. He had Truck Robinson, Bernard King, and guys like Marvin Webster, and just
Overachieving team for sure.
yeah, Bill Cartwright. Just had some good teams, and they were fun to watch. Rory Sparrow, not Sugar Ray Richardson, people who were tough, but not great guards. But geez, Sugar Ray was as good as any guard for about a 5 or 6 year period. If he 6'6" from Montana State, he would he could go get you a triple double. If he was a good shooter, he'd be a Hall of Famer. He had some abuse problems off to the side, but Michael Richardson's one of the best big guards back then. He was 6'6", and back in 1984 to be a point guard at 6'6", he was like the second biggest to Magic. So and he could wreck a game, and nights where his jump shot was going, he could tear it up. So they had some, and Hubie got his teams to play defense. That's what he relied on.
Yeah, so this guy, he's coach. I mean, he was an assistant coach for the Bucks when they had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robinson. So he's coached guys from there to all the way to Pau Gasol and Shane Battier. So this guy has seen a lot of basketball, and the joke that you've used is so true. This guy has forgotten more basketball than most people ever know, and he's
Oh
certainly
God, yeah,
one of those. There's no question about it.
yeah. He's one of the fathers of the game that's still around. Not that he invented it, but he's one of the modern day fathers of it because he's like the old sage, and he knows a ton of hoop. He's amazing.
So the great Hubie Brown calling it a career from his broadcasting career, and he'll be sorely missed for sure. But obviously, for those who've played and watched basketball, certainly have
Yeah.
admired him for all these years.
Him and Chuck Daly on the
He'll be
same
missed.
staff. That's a little bit of power on that staff.
Yeah, really, right. Yeah. They weren't, I'm sure, quite, wondering what we're going to do on this out of bounds play here or something like that. So,
No, him and
plenty.
Chuck Daly, one of my favorites. Hubie, one of my favorites. Certainly two great coaches. Pretty amazing.
Yep. So Hubie Brown calling it a career. So like I said, he'll be missed by many fans around, not just this country, around the world for sure, because basketball,
Sure.
the NBA, is
Great,
a global
great,
game.
great
So,
basketball mind.
yep. So, Uncle Dave, our next topic here, we did this about, I don't know, about a month ago a month or so ago. We talked about Jahlil Okafor perhaps
Yep.
getting a call up for the NBA, and he's getting one. The Indiana Pacers have signed him to a 10-day contract, and he's getting called up. And for those who don't know, as of right now, he's averaging 18.6 per game points wise, 9 rebounds, and 3.2 assists a game on 65% shooting from the field. So we talked about it then. We were saying, what is this guy going to have to do to get a call up? And here it is. Here's his chance.
Yeah.
We're not surprised because we both thought he would get it. So what do you think of this here?
Yeah. Well, the show was prophetic in
Yeah, it
our
was.
thoughts. Not to toot our own horn, but toot. So the bad news is that you just hope that they slow it down enough, the Pacers, to throw him the ball once in a while. They play such a fast pace. Rick Carlisle's one of the great coaches in the league. Virginia alum. Um, he's a great player for the Celtics, but you know, Okafor must have gotten himself in better shape after his initial, I
Looking
guess,
at photos of him, he looks like an
yeah.
incredible shape right now. Yeah.
And yeah, these guys have a rebirth. I think so much is expected of them, and they're told that they're going to be great. And sometimes, we do that today in AAU and college and
Yeah, they're
everywhere
20
else.
years old and you tell them to save a franchise. It's just ridiculous, I
Yeah,
think.
and we tell them that nothing is wrong with their game. And then we put
Right.
all people around them who are just yes men, and then you wonder what happens, and then you realize, it's so competitive at some level. Eventually, you top out, and then what happens basically is, a team like a guy like that gets realizes that he has to love the game a little more, and maybe the fact that no one expected anything of him after a while, maybe it made him hungry again.
Right.
Same thing with Kevin Knox, and you hope these guys ever get it because there's so many guys like Anthony Bennett who never got it.
Right. Well, you hope that his career trajectory now goes the way of like an Andrew Bogut, who really stumbled out of the gate, but then really found his footing and he wound up contributing to a championship team. So I think that's the path that Jahlil Okafor's got to take. And you talked about it. I thought you made a great point when we did the show on him about will he get called up eventually? You're like, look, for a second unit, you could throw the ball to him in the low post, the high post. You could run
Yeah.
pick and roll with him, pick and pop. I mean, there's so much versatility with this guy. That for a
Yeah.
second unit center, there's no question he should be on a roster. And he was on the Pacers G League team, and he's now going to be on their roster now, their NBA team. So I
Well,
think
yeah,
it'll be interesting to
it's
see what happens.
funny. In the old NBA, oh, not even the old, even as recent as 10 years, the idea of having a second good unit was to have a guy you could play through in the second unit, maybe to give you 12 to 15 minutes a night to play through while the stars or the better guys got a rest. And he's certainly a guy you could do that with. The only thing on the defensive end is you want to know who they're playing, I guess, and we'll have to see if they space him out. But you could definitely throw the ball to him. And he weighs most modern day centers are pretty light in the ass in that respect. And not many people can be physically bigger than him.
Right.
So, he could definitely score. He had a really good touch. Like I said, he just needed to get in better shape. And, now he's not 19 anymore. He's a man by now. It's 2015. He left Duke. So it's 10 years later. He's probably about 30. He's probably got a good five solid years left. And good for the Pacers. The Pacers are a fun team to watch going forward in the NBA playoffs. They were really fun to watch last year. Like I said, Rick Carlisle's a really good coach, and
He's 29, I
you got to
believe.
give what's that 29? Yep,
29.
and you got to give him credit because they'll play a fast pace, but maybe when he comes in, we can throw the ball in the post. I mean, they got the great point guard, obviously. They're a fun team to watch, and they beat the beloved Knicks. But you know what? They're going to be fun in the playoffs, and they're a live dog. I know the Celtics and the Cavs are obviously the class of the East. The Knicks got thumped by the Celtics the other day, but you know that the Pacers are a live dog, and I wouldn't want to see them.
Yep, we talked about it then. It's the same thing now. This guy is just too skilled, and he's a big, so you always need them. Even today's NBA, you still need someone that's gonna foul a guy hard, block a shot, give you a bucket down low. So this guy's gonna do that for sure. And I'm happy
Yeah,
as a former Duke alumni, former Duke basketball alumni, we're definitely happy to see it because I definitely thought he would have been a very good pro. So he has a chance now to rejuvenate himself here and have a second crack at it. So, and he's in a good situation now. The Pacers are a good team. We'll see
yes,
what kind of, obviously, the play style and everything that's going to factor into what his role is going to be exactly. But like you said, the second unit, you might play a little differently than you do with your starters. So
yeah,
we're going to see what happens with him. And Rick
yeah,
Carlisle's
and
a good coach.
yeah, he's got the right situation. So much of the NBA or anything in life is your situation with your coach, and as a coach, I realize that been a lot of coaches in the world who've killed players. There's been a lot of players
Much.
who've killed coaches. Like I told you, Kelly Tripucka was averaging like 22 for a career for like 5 or 6 years. Goes to play for Frank Layden, who, by everybody's account, is a good coach and never gets off the bench again for Utah. Utah winds up missing a third scorer, and then you have a 22-point career scorer sitting on your bench. So
Yep.
maybe you should have
Stephon
looked in the
Marbury with
mirror a little
Larry
bit harder.
Brown. That's another
Yep, Stephon
situation.
Marbury, Larry Brown. Larry Brown gets treated like part of the Holy Grail. He screwed Stephon Marbury hard.
Yep.
It's just a fact. I don't care if you're a Larry Brown apologist out there. I don't care. I never liked him. To say that we play the right way, there's more than one way to play that's right. And like he's not the holy grail of basketball. And I know he's famous and all that, but I'm sorry you screwed Stephon Marbury. You had an agenda. And what are you gonna do? You won 8 or 9 games in a row and you didn't switch the lineup. Why would you do that unless you're
Yeah.
trying to tank?
My view of
So
Larry Brown is, yeah, he did a good job with the 76ers, but that Pistons team, you have to win more than one championship with that unit
oh
there.
God, well they didn't handle the timeout situation to let the Spurs get on a couple of runs. But either way,
Yep.
obviously excellent coach, but he ran him out. And I don't care what anybody tells you that I was watching that live when it happened, and they ran him out. And the fact that this guy goes on into China in less than perfect conditions and still keeps playing every day shows you had a love for the game and you took it out of him. So it's and Stephon Marbury, one of the most talented guards you'll ever see in your life. So 6'3", built like a brick shit house. Obviously, a very impressive passer, great lift on his jump shot, good shooter. Yeah, sure, he wanted too much money when him and Garnett were breaking off, and Garnett was going to get more money because he was the big fella, and back then the big fellas got more money. But it doesn't mean you run the kid off.
Have an indication on what happens. Obviously, you got this the second half of the season here with the NBA. So, Jahlil Okafor, maybe he'll be on the roster for them to come playoff time. And
Yeah,
obviously, we're going to pay attention to him with his situation there because that's a good story.
sure.
One more NBA topic, Uncle Dave. We're going to go back in the time vault here because now everybody's got a podcast and a show now, and a lot of these NBA guys, former guys, talk about prior things that happened in their career. So one was Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway. There's the situation, if anyone saw the 30 for 30 about the Orlando Magic in the 90s, they were an
Yep.
expansion franchise and they got Penny Hardaway and Shaquille O'Neal. Were a real exciting team. I think you've said, Uncle Dave, that it was a team with no balls, though, right? You've
No, I never had any balls.
so apparently there, Shaq talked about the situation with him and Penny Hardaway, and he called out Penny Hardaway for not being there for him during his contract talks. And so it says here we got Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway saying Orlando was his team during contract negotiations. So there was like a situation where there was some friction. Whose team was it? Was it Penny Hardaway's team? Was it Shaquille O'Neal's team? And Shaq thought it was the craziest thing I ever heard, is what he said. And he said the bad thing is when you have two alpha males on the team that don't have the same understanding, things could go haywire. Now
Yep.
that quote right there, how often do you think this happens, Uncle Dave, in the NBA? Like you have a situation where like you have two dynasties like the Celtics and the Lakers. You didn't really hear about this type of stuff with contracts and everything, even though you had obviously multiple alpha males on those teams. It didn't seem to, have an effect on them. The Bulls documentary, The Last Dance, they talked about Scottie Pippen's contract situation, but it wasn't a thing where like Michael Jordan like was blamed for not being there for him. It was a thing between the GM, Jerry Krause, and Scottie Pippen. So do you think this goes to you blame management on this? Is it individual player, you think? Is it their
Well, I
fault?
mean, I mean, I mean, Shaq can talk all he wants, but he wanted to go to LA because he had other things on his mind besides Orlando.
Yes.
LA is, back then is the film capital of the world, still is. Shaq was making a lot of money. Shaq was the better player. It's not even close. If anybody suggests it's close, it's crazy. I mean, if you watch them, it was pretty obvious who was the difference maker. They originally had the draft rights to was Chris Webber and Shaq, but then they figured they couldn't play together. This stuff goes on all the time, but this is why the '80s Lakers are one of the greatest teams of all time. You never heard about this at Magic and
No, that's
Kareem?
that's what I'm saying. You have a
That's
situation here where
yeah.
it just blew up, but not every great team or NBA franchise has these issues sometimes. So it's obviously it's
But
unfortunate.
that's the funny part. Look who Magic is. Magic cares about one thing, winning. And
Right.
that's the difference. Penny and guys like Penny, like I said, Marbury and Garnett, they had this problem. Marbury wanted the same amount of money as Garnett. He wasn't going to get it, and they had to break that squad up. So this happens quite a bit, especially today.
That's a
Everybody
good
wants to
comparison.
be
The
the guy.
Minnesota Timberwolves with Stephon
Yeah,
Martin. It was a little bit like
yeah,
that too. Yep.
yeah. And Steph kind of, I'm sure if you could put him in a time portal and have him go back, I'm sure he'd handle
Yeah,
it
he screwed
differently
that one up. You
because
don't leave prime KG.
well, look at Kobe.
Yes.
Kobe
Yep.
did it. We all love Kobe, and we give him this mythical status, and obviously a tragic ending to his life helps that mythical status. But he was a real prick, and he could have won even more if he just would have wanted to keep Shaq. But Kobe didn't want to do that, and so Shaq was a little older. They could cast him out. They probably had another title in him there somewhere. Maybe Shaq could have definitely took care of his body a little bit better and things of that nature. But obviously, this happens a lot. This happens way too often. There's a lot of jealousy in professional sports and life in general. And you see this all the time. But like, we just talked about it before with Marbury. And so, he did it. We had Scottie Pippen these days blames Jordan for everything. I think he's also
Oh yeah.
responsible for the
I think
Kennedy
he's
assassination.
lost his mind. I think Scottie
Yeah,
Pippen.
Scotty's desperately trying to do something. But they also see that the Celtics, the mid '80s Celtics, Cedric Maxwell had this problem.
Yes.
Cedric
Yeah.
Maxwell was the MVP of the '84 Finals. He really wanted to hold out. He wanted to make more money, and some people thought he was jaking it, but he wasn't jaking it. He was actually hurt. But you know what? People always accuse and things of that nature. And Cedric Maxwell's an excellent player. Only know that they know the truth. I'm sure nobody's totally innocent in this. The Shaq Penny thing, what is Penny supposed to do though? I mean, Shaq's getting courted by the Lakers, and it was funny. We talked about this last week. We tell you the Lakers always get the star, and they wanted Shaq. He was the next guy, and they got him. Now
Yep.
they got Luca, they got Kareem, they got Wilt. Magic they drafted. He's the only him and Kobe, the only two they ever drafted. Well, they didn't even draft him. They had to give Vlade Divac to Kobe to draft him. So they always get what they want with this stuff. The Lakers always go for the star, and it's like it's something in Laker DNA. Even though Rob Pelinka's not Jerry West, he understands to go get a star, so they go get Luca.
Yep. The Magic Moment documentary, I think, also highlighted they also screwed it up a little bit with the free agency with Shaquille O'Neal. They didn't come at him with all guaranteed money right up front. You have to give him the max, and you had to solidify that. They didn't do that, and Jerry West kind of courted him and was very shrewd. And Jerry West, we've talked about it, Hall of Famer. Forget even just as a player, he's a Hall of Fame GM. Between the the Lakers run in the '80s
Yeah,
and
one of the
Kobe
three or four
Shaq
best
situation.
basketball careers in the
Yeah,
history of the world.
yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah, if you stack up everything from management to player, he's definitely a top three guy, right? There's no question
Yeah, I
about
mean,
it.
he walks in the room, his championship rings laying on the table.
Yeah, yep. So it's a
And then
situation
they go on
where,
to win three more. They go on to
yep.
win three in a row with him.
And you know what? Like we talked, you mentioned it before with the Cedric Maxwell situation with the Celtics and Magic. The Celtics Lakers documentary that ESPN did was great. They highlighted it, how some players were envious. They thought maybe Magic was the one deciding what was going on, with management, and he was a little too close to the owner. It showed you though that was a situation where it was friction, but they got through it though, and they wound up winning. It didn't cause the team to implode. And once that got split up, that duo with Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway was over then. But
Sure.
Lakers managed to get through it. Celtics post Cedric Maxwell won. I guess that just goes to show you, though, it's who's remaining on the team, and you have to have a strong mentality to get through those type of things. But a unique one that blew up, obviously.
Yeah, well, Magic and Kareem, Magic, he basically Kareem is still called Pop, so Kareem still sat in the control center, basically in the bus when they used to travel. Kareem sat in the front. So Magic, being 19 years old, respected that. And so, he ran everything through Kareem, and when he got the fast break, Kareem stayed back, and Magic took care of it. So bottom line is, they just cared about winning. I don't know how many guys are really just about winning anymore. It's like I said, we talk about this all the time. I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's a me society, and you're trying to preach a team game. Very hard.
Yeah, it clearly wasn't just about winning because when Shaq went to the Lakers, they had to gut their team. I mean, it was for
Yep.
4 years before they won. He won a championship with the Lakers, so it wasn't like
Yeah, they had Nick
when he
Van
went to the
Exel.
Lakers that wasn't a better situation. The Magic one with
No.
Penny Hardaway was a better situation, but like
Yeah,
you said, there was other things besides basketball that attracted him to the Lakers, and
sure, sure.
we went
Well,
there.
they remember them losing to the Spurs with Nick Van Exel
Yeah,
running the
Eddie
point.
Jones, they had a good team, but
Eddie Jones, they had a good team, but
it
the
wasn't
Spurs
as
picked them
talented.
apart.
Yep.
The Spurs took them apart.
Going to transition, Uncle Dave, to our college hoop here, and I have to
Sure.
talk about North Carolina versus Clemson tonight.
Woo, boy,
Jesus Christ! I'm telling you, look,
Twitter,
I have
Twitter,
to just,
Twitter,
I
Twitter was on fire tonight.
just have to unload on this. Clemson had a great win against Duke. There's no question about that. I thought that Carolina, 48 hours later, could come in and give them some problems, and Clemson just steps on Carolina's neck. And North Carolina, just looks completely lifeless, no direction.
Yep,
There's
yep,
just no piss and vinegar on this team whatsoever. And Clemson just, I mean, this kid Victor Lakin really had a nice game.
yep,
Dane Zachary, Chase Hunter. Clemson they had the three best players on the floor tonight. And
yeah,
Carolina, I just don't see they have RJ Davis and nothing else really offensively.
yeah. Well, they got a kid, Nelia Kudo, who's on commercials but can't shoot. Then you got a kid like Tribble, who's a slasher. They got the freshman, who's pretty good, but bottom line is RJ Davis doesn't have the same amount of space. We talked
Yeah,
about this
Trimble.
last week
Yeah,
without Baycott.
yep.
The other thing is, if you're a Clemson fan, this is a dream come true. If you want to look up in the history of Clemson, you tell me the last time they beat Carolina and Duke back to
Yeah,
back.
exactly. That's what I was saying. How many teams?
We've always joked about this with these ACC alumni who talk about, oh, you're at BC, you got to go beat Carolina and Duke this weekend. You just don't do that. How many times has any one team beat them back to back
Yeah,
times in
exactly.
ACC
Right.
in the last 45 years? So Clemson fans, while you're getting drunk on campus right now, you might want to kick back and remember. You probably don't know any damn history because you're in your fifth beer. But the bottom line is, you're going to look back one day when you're about 50 and be like, wow, this is the last time we've done this. It probably is. I mean, now maybe they don't play that often back to back, but even go back and look the last time you beat Carolina and Duke, the two consecutive games. It doesn't have to be even consecutive.
Yeah, you're
Consecutive
right.
times you played them.
Right.
So go back and look, even with some of those great Duke Clemson teams that Cliff Ellis was coaching, or teams that Larry Nance back
There's
then.
no way. Yeah.
You just don't go beat Carolina and Duke. You just don't
No.
go do it. People forget. Carolina's won their championship since 1957. They got six of them. Duke's got five of them since '92. So in those years there, you're talking, Carolina's got 4 since 92. So in those years there, you're talking about 9 championships. So the bottom line is these teams have been good. Even when the years when neither win the title, they're good teams.
Yeah.
So you don't fly through there. Brad Bromell now is at the top of the win record for Clemson all time. But these guys, this is a rare occasion when this happens. So I hope Clemson fans really tonight take a step back. But Twitter was killing Hubert Davis. I mean, I saw some of the most diehard Carolina fans saying they hate Tar Heel basketball. Hubert's got one chance to survive. He's already come out. I can see what his line is going to be when he goes in to meet at the end of the season. It's going to be, well, we're going to get a GM and we're going to change how we do
Yes,
things.
they were
Is
talking
that,
about that during the broadcast, that that's the
yeah,
culture change they're going to make, and that's going to fix everything. But even
but
with
is
that,
that enough?
you're still
It,
North Carolina, though. You should have no problem attracting kids to come to your school that are
right.
top players. It's the brand.
Well, it's funny. I was saying to you the other day that, you know, they lost one of their beloved assistant coaches who just
Yeah,
procured talent after talent all those years, and he's on a different staff now. But, Carolina always had talent. I could tell you. I said this weeks ago. I'll say it again. First time they ever had that big guy. They even had Joe Wolf or Pete Shilcutt at one point who were better than the big guys they got now. They had nothing right now. So the bottom line is they're not a bubble team. I can't believe they're putting you guys on a bubble. They're done. There's no
it's
bubble
just
there.
off
Their
brand.
bubble
It's that
is
has nothing to do with the actual
yeah,
talent.
they're
It's
blowing
just
bubbles.
old.
They're not on the goddamn bubble. They're not doing anything good. But the thing is, people want to keep Carolina in the bubble. But again, this is where if you're Joe Lunardi or any of these other guys like Ken Palm, God damn it, do the eye test. This team is shot. They don't do anything.
Uncle Dave,
They're
multiple
just
20-point losses in a week. You can't have that at
yeah. And
UNC.
this is North Carolina. I've said it before. This is not acceptable at Kentucky. It's not acceptable at Carolina. Now it's not acceptable at Duke. There's some places you're not allowed to do this. As Carl Neptune found out, it's not acceptable at Villanova anymore. I mean, it's he's going to find that out soon. This is not acceptable at some places, and we're talking about North Carolina. It's one of the holy grails of college basketball. As much
Yep.
as it pains me to say it,
It's true,
you're
though.
not
It's the
allowed
truth.
to do
Yep.
this there.
Yeah.
You are not allowed. And now, like I said, this is what Virginia's gone through this year. You can lose by 10, but you lose by 10 2 or 3 times in a row at Virginia now with the establishment of Tony Bennett. That's not acceptable. So, it's just not acceptable anymore. And it doesn't, whether it's fair or not, these people are getting paid more money than ever. And this is how alums think. And so they're not going to tolerate it. So Carolina, I heard the first half of the game on the car on the way home tonight from the all league and all county vote we have. And, I'm driving home and it's just ridiculous. You sit there and they're getting beat by 30 at one point.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is North Carolina. This is not North Carolina Central.
No.
This is the Tar Heels. So don't get me wrong, it's so enjoyable to watch them suck. But at the same time, like you just know it's not going to last because, like I said, not acceptable at Kentucky. They even chased out Cal, who had a 730 winning percentage, I believe. They did fire Matt Doherty, Carolina, back in the day, so it's not beneath them to get rid of an alum. But at the same time, I just don't know if he survives this. I really don't because this is getting ugly. And don't forget, they've beaten some really bad teams at home by 1 or 2 points with
Yeah,
some
the Notre like
crazy ass
the Notre
officiating.
Dame game where they foul on a 3-point. You know what I mean? They
I
just
mean,
kind of,
they've won some games. I mean, they, they
yeah.
they should be 2 or 3 games worse. And like I said,
Yes.
you could talk about how you want to establish, what you want to do going forward, and that's great and all, but that might not save them. You could say that now, but why is Duke already had a GM for several years, and why is Duke not missing a beat? Hubert is 10 years older than John Shire, approximately. Actually, no, he's about 20 years older than Shire.
Yes.
And John Shire is probably late 30s, early 40s. So 2010 grad, yeah, so he's probably like 35, but Hubert, 54, 55 in there, a little bit younger than me. This might not fly if they don't finish decently here and make a little run in the ACC tournament, maybe
That's what
get
I'm
to a
saying.
semi.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, and again, it's all about look. We work in New York, me and you work in New York here where we know we know the power of how something looks sometimes is unfortunately even more powerful than the actual truth. Sometimes how it appears in a place like New York. Well,
Yep.
that's Carolina basketball.
Sure
Carolina
is.
basketball, Duke basketball, Kentucky basketball. How it looks is very important. So if they go out and they get blown in their ACC loss somewhere, it's not going to be pretty for Hubert Davis, and that's unfortunate.
No, yep. If you, like you said, if you're in the ACC tournament and they lose by 15 or 20 to an SMU or a Georgia Tech or Wake Forest,
Yeah,
I
you
just
go out and
don't.
get blown. I'm
Yeah,
telling you,
yeah,
you're gonna go get blown, and you know, you'll know because whenever you go to the ACC tournament, wherever you go, that light blue's in the crowd. If the light
yes,
blue doesn't show up, something's up.
right. Yep. And we talked
So
about it too. You've made an excellent observation. You said historically North Carolina, their front court have always have had good
oh,
big guys up front. I also
just
Dave, on
filthy
this
amount
team,
of good talent.
I don't see like a Kennedy Meeks even or a James Michael
Nope,
McAdoo.
nope,
Certainly not a Tyler Hansbrough. They don't have a Sean May. They don't have that anchor down low that they've historically had. That's sorely
no,
missing with this team.
no. Meeks won him a title. He was such a beast. So they just don't have that. And look at the guys they've had. Rasheed Wallace, a smaller version of a center, is Antoine Jameson. They've just always had it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like I said, the worst they've ever had is Joe Wolf and Pete Chilcutt, and they were great players. They got drafted. I mean, so this is another level. I
Yeah.
mean,
You
they
don't
put a
even have
team on the
a Luke May here.
no, they put a team on the floor that night versus Duke, where the biggest guy was 6'7". Now it used to be
Yeah.
Duke was in that situation versus Carolina for 30 years at a 40.
Right.
Here you are now. I mean, good God, Shire's accumulated so much talent. I think that's what's really pissing them off too. It's one thing when Coach K would have those teams with Greg Paulus and a couple of other overachieving guys. This bothers him now because Shire's coming out here loaded every year, and he's obviously making a connection with the recruits that Hubert is not making.
Right.
And so
And you know,
obviously,
UNC fans were banking when Coach K left that they would kind of dip in recruiting. I'm sure they were banking on that. They were
oh my
hoping.
God, they've actually elevated their recruiting since
They
Coach
have, yeah.
K's left. And
Yes.
I love Coach K, but obviously Shire has a different message because even Coach K's last year with all those great freshmen, those were Shire's guys. Shire recruited them all. And that was the story on that. So this is a situation where Duke's getting top level talent. So, and eventually Shire will be the older guy, and then he won't get him anymore. But at some point, you got to ask yourself, like if that's what the bad news is. It's like the Yankees and the Mets here in New York. It's okay if you're both just mediocre, but if the one is really good, the other one feels so much pressure. And so it's a tough situation. So like right now, the Jets and the Giants both suck. But the Mets and the Yankees both had successful years. So, if the Mets were really bad or the Yankees were really bad, they'd feel it worse. And this is what's going on. Duke and Carolina 8 miles apart. And
Yeah.
Carolina's not happy that Duke just beat the living crap out of them. And if they do it again, if they go into Carolina on senior night at Carolina and drop them by 25 like they did, I mean, there's going to be hell to pay.
Right. Yeah, there certainly will be. And you know what? I want to give credit to Clemson though. Two consecutive back-to-back wins against Duke and Carolina. That's impressive. So Clemson does look good. They're 12-2 in conference, 20-5 overall this year. They're having a really good season.
They have the two Hunter guards. They also have Shefflin. They also have the big fella in the hole, like you talked about. But in the Duke Clemson game, and the Duke fans, like I said, on these pages are just so obnoxious. I'm like, hey, you've lost to the oldest team in the country, the third oldest team in the country, and now the 10th oldest team in the country. There's a pattern there. They're all physical. They all three get to the ground, and they all knock you on your ass. You had guys, get sick. Guys leave with fever. I mean, so there's always that touch of, how come we're not feeling good that night? Well, there's a reason for that. So that's my problem with where Duke is at right now. And like I said, love them to death. I'll root for them to my dying day. But at the same time, it's a problem. You lost to these very experienced teams. And I don't care what you say, when you're 18, you're not as strong as you are at 23 or 24. It's not even close. And you don't have the same experience. And so they can get by with it. But at the same time, really the last freshman team to win with a lot of freshmen was 2015 Duke with Okafor. So, here you are. You got to ask yourself, is that a way to go? I mean, it didn't get Cal anywhere. He's on the way out. He left there. He went to Arkansas. But, it's just I just don't see it. I want them to win, but they got to avoid these bigger, older teams because I'm telling
Right.
you right now, it's not going to be pretty.
Oh,
And
we're going to transition Uncle Dave to the next game that was on tonight. That was
yep.
a good game. And these are two teams that play exactly how you said that would give Duke a problem. Houston and
Oh
Baylor.
yeah.
Houston winds up winning 76-65. And Houston just looks excellent. Defensively, they are just ferocious and they just wear you down. That's what they did to Baylor tonight.
Well, Kelvin was mad after their loss last week, so he wasn't too
Yes.
happy.
Yes. So, they were going to come out roaring tonight, and they did, and forced 15 turnovers on Baylor, and they only had seven themselves, 12 of 16 from the line, and 10 of 24 from three. they are just looking really good and clicking on all cylinders here. 11-1 in conference, and you know what? Baylor is 15-8 and 7-5 in their conference. So they're a team that again they're a true bubble team.
They got the great freshmen. They got Roach in the backcourt. They got some experience. You don't want to see them in your side of the bracket in that second round, like
No.
the round of 32, and you see them get like a 9 seed and you're an 8. You're like, oh, you're even a 1. If they're in a 9-8 game, which they're not going to be. They're going to be a 6 or a 7 probably. You don't want to see them lingering around your bracket as a 2, and all of a sudden you got to go play the 7 and you're a 2, and you're like, holy Christ, it's Baylor.
Yeah, and
They play a different style.
yep, and they got 5 guys in double figures tonight, so they spread the wealth. They're just a team that I think, in tournament time can just slowly just beat you by 1,000 paper cuts. And, they can really get you though and pound you though if you turn the ball over against them. So they're going to be
They'll rip you apart.
yeah, they're going to be a real tough out. 19, to me, they're a team I wouldn't be surprised if they wind up winning the whole thing.
Yeah, well, Baylor's tough. Houston's even tougher right now, but I don't think we've heard the last of Baylor. Again, their health plays a part. They're a little banged up these days, but Baylor, like I said, they guard a different way, and Houston guards another way, even better than Baylor does. So it's and yesterday we saw Maryland just clinic against Rutgers. Time's running out on my Scarlet Knights. But Maryland looked really good. McKenzie looked really good. The rookie looked really good. So I mean, Maryland looks solid. Coach Willard's a great coach. So early in the year they struggled, but yesterday they looked all the part.
Yeah, then you look at the schedule here. What do we got for the rest of the
Tomorrow
week?
night is an absolute smorgasbord.
Yep, let's see here on Tuesday, tomorrow night. Yeah, we got number 1 Auburn at Vanderbilt. You got number
Yep.
3 Florida at Mississippi State, Tennessee at Kentucky. Those are three
Yeah.
games that are all at 7 o'clock. Those are must-see games. You have also
Yep.
number 7 Purdue at Michigan at 20.
Great game.
Oh,
You feel like this is what you say to yourself. I can't believe I'm fortunate enough to get to do this. Like, and sit
yes.
here and watch all these basketball games. This is like,
Yeah.
so I'm sitting here like, all right, I'll work and teach all day. Then I'll go to the office and plan the spring league and the summer league. And then I'll be like, I get to come and watch that crap. And I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, it's
When I say
nice.
crap, I mean amazing stuff.
Yeah.
I just can't believe I get to do this. So I sit here, I've been doing this for 40 years. You sit there and you watch these games, you just go,
It's great.
what's better than this? It was so funny because, like,
Get some good dinner and it's the best.
yeah, I mean, so you laugh, but after my sophomore year of college at CW Post, which is about 40 minutes from here, I was like, Dad, I don't really need to live in the dorm anymore. He's like, why not? I go, 2 reasons, Dad. Mom's cooking and I can get ESPN any night I want in my room.
Right.
And he's
That's
like, well,
the
what are you going
reason.
to do on ESPN? I said, Dad, I watch college basketball every night.
Yep.
It's something I love to do. And it's like, it's a pleasure. So why would, it's just, these games are amazing. So that's just the 7 o'clock games. The 9 o'clock lineup isn't much worse.
No, it's not. You
So
got you got number 2 Alabama at Texas. That's going to be a nice game to see there. You have also what else here at 9 o'clock? You have Georgia at Texas A&M, who's number 8 right now. Indiana at 11, Michigan State. Colorado at number 17, Kansas, and then UConn and Creighton. So you have a nice slate of stuff here
yep,
for
it's
tomorrow night.
amazing. And UConn's got to get it going. Are they going to find themselves in the 7 or the 8? They got to start to make a stand here. I know the defending champs and all, but Creighton's a tough team, but UConn's got to take a stand. They lost to St. John's. They got to put their foot in the ground here at some point and
Yeah.
say, hey, we're not done yet. I know they're in the Ken Palm and also the crap. They're ranked powerfully, but again, we got to win some fucking games.
Yeah, there's no that.
So and I know Hurley will get them going, but you still got to win some games. And so they don't stick their foot in the ground here with Creighton, and then the second time they play St. John's, I'm sorry, you're going to drop to an 8 or a 9, maybe a 10. But I know they're better than that. You don't want to see them on the 9 or the 10 line if you're like a 1 or a 2 or a 3, but at the same time, they got to win some games.
Yes, they sure do. All right, Uncle Dave, we'll wrap it up there.
Sounds good.
All right, all you basketball fans out there, live long and prosper, and may the force be with you.
Yes, sir.